Welcome back to New Realities. I am here again with someone who's becoming one of my favorite guests, Ann Tucker, and she is so full of wisdom and connections and a preparation for humanity about what is coming. She speaks with the angels. Are the angels going to come through today, kind of give us, or they're always with you, the angels,
They're
aren't they?
here. They're absolutely here. But yeah, but they do love to share. Absolutely.
Well, they have a lot to share, but I want to just ask you about that. Are they angels actually in the sense that we know of angels, or are they maybe an extraterrestrial, higher dimensional consciousness? What do you think?
They are angels. They specifically refer to themselves as angels. Such a good question because you wonder, like, what separates a angel from, say, for example, another, you know, type of being that is just from another part of the universe. But no, they are uniquely angels, and they have a unique role. Is that they call us. They say they are the light of the divine, and we are the spark of the divine. So we have different aspects of divinity inside of us. So because they are the light of the divine, it's like they are the awareness of the divine. When you know how we think of them in a lot of our religious texts, we think of angels as being messengers, but it's not because they are the divine post office. They the way that they take our messages and share them with the divine is they put their awareness on it, and their awareness is like the spotlight of cosmic awareness. And so if they then draw awareness to something, that whatever you are praying about or thinking about or whatever it is then carried out to the universe. So it is but yeah, but they have a unique role. They exist everywhere all at once. They're actually like we probably heard we have guardian angels, and we do, but it's not a guardian angel that just kind of stands right next to you, like to protect you. They're actually integrated to your body. They incarnate with us. So your guardian angel is there to protect the spark of the divine that you carry, your divine essence. Um,
Right. But what makes your angels, if they can be called your angels, different than people who see angels, is that they are telling you about the future. There's some very intense events from what you've said in the past about what is coming. What, first of all, why are your angels telling you that and nobody else's angels are telling them that?
I think that probably has to do with what role did we agree to play when we came? That I believe that everyone who is attempting to connect, everyone who's listening will get their own personal information about what they should do during the events that are coming. And that's by design. Like that is the preferred thing, is that everyone will listen to their own counsel. But part of the karma I gave myself coming to the planet this time was that I was gonna serve in this way, that I was going to be one of the ones that was willing to receive these messages and to share them. And I'll tell you, it was not an easy thing to do. I don't know anybody who wants to be the guy standing on the street corner going like, the world is it, you know what I mean? No one wants to be the crazy person. And as a matter of fact, when they introduced me to, like, I was channeling the angels, everything was nice and happy. And then they're like, and tomorrow you're going to meet this other angel. He's got some stuff for you. And they showed me the angel. They're like, this is the one you're speaking to, and he is an angel, and it's perfectly safe to channel him. And then the next day he came in. The first thing he says is, you must share this. It will save people's lives. You must share this.
Wow. Well, well, who was that angel? I guess it doesn't matter, but who was
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. I mean, so they've only once given me a name. The very first time I started channeling them, they gave me a name. And then they immediately said they do not want me to think of them as, they wanted me to think of them as a collective consciousness, because they want me to get away from the concept of identity and live in the conception of unity, and to perceive them as a unified consciousness, even though they have different energies. And as I can feel when different aspects come through.
Right.
Yeah.
So this angel said to you, you have to share the, now what is it that he says you have to share? Can you
Ah,
share?
oh my gosh, so many things. I mean, it was the first half of 2020. He came in like middle of 2020. And then for the next 6 months, all the messages were like stuff that was heavy. It was all stuff about the events, the major events of the shift, especially the events leading up to the big flash of light, which they say is the moment that we will look back on and say everything changed. And then after that 6 month period, like literally January 1 of 2021, then everything changed. And then they started talking about what is an angel and how do they help human. They did this kind of whole relationship building time where they were talking about other things. And then since then, it's like they change topics depending on their overall goal. All of it has been trying to guide us towards our awakening. But the stuff they talked about right off the bat, like the heaviest stuff, they talked about a big earth rift, which is, they said it would be, and this was very, it was earlier in when I was channeling. My channeling was not as fluent as it is now. It was a little more rough. But I'll tell you, it came out of nowhere, and it was that it was somewhere in the Indian Ocean, India. They said Indian line near ocean. I since looked, and sure enough, there is a fault line that goes right down the Indian Ocean. And I had dreams about it as well after I channeled it, that it would be somewhere near Indonesia. So like, I think it's going to be right in that area. So it could be inside the ocean itself, and a very, very significant earth rift. And I think this is, the angels have since said that the fixtures of the earth would not be the same. So I think that this is part of a overall, like a lot of movement of the tectonic plates is coming. And so major shifting of large land masses, which is crazy to think about, but that's one of the things they led with.
Well, so the big thing, though, I mean, that's one thing. But what you just said about the major event with the the light,
Yeah.
that's, if people haven't heard you before, that is traumatic. Of course, earthquakes and earth rifts are also major things, but the light that's coming sounds like a solar flare. Would that be it, or what would
So
you say?
they've described it as it's a solar energy. So it is coming from a star. It could be ours, but probably some other star. And some people think it might be Betelgeuse, which is like, I heard that, like I started hearing about Betelgeuse last year sometime. The message about the flash of light first came earlier, like in that 2020 period. And they've talked about it a lot since then. But Betelgeuse is another star that supernovaed, which is like when a star dies and it huge, huge explosion. And this happened, it would have happened in our like 1400s, but it takes so long for the light to travel to us that it would have been on its way this whole time. And we would only begin to see it sometime in, the astronomers all say, sometime in the very new future. Could be weeks, it could be a couple years, but we are right in the window when we would expect the light from that supernova to hit the planet. So some people think it might be Betelgeuse. That's the name of it, the star, the supernova. But yeah, so they said it would be rainbow starlight is how they described it. So, and then after they said that, I saw that there were some of the auroras that were, how we've been getting auroras. It's kind of like literally like in the Bahamas, they're seeing aurora borealis or something. It's like everywhere. That in some areas, it literally was rainbows in the sky. So, I mean, I think it's going to be that, but much more intense and lasting for a period of time. Yeah.
So, like I talked to you, other people have predicted these light ramp us at 10 days of light, but so whatever's coming, it's coming soon, is what you
Yeah.
want people to know. Like you think by the end or of 2026, which is
That's my
about.
guess. That is not channeled. The angels do not do time, but they have said so that the way that they've kind of given me the messages is they've given us a lot of breadcrumbs where they've said, okay, these are the events that are going to happen. Some of the events have already happened. And so some of the things and the things that have happened exactly the way the angels described, like uncannily so, in a way that, and it's really funny because here's the crazy thing about getting channeled information when it's outside of our expectation. I would hear it and I would apply it to the way I see the world today. And only in retrospect, after it happened, I would be able to see how they said it as clear, as plain as day, but I just didn't have a frame of reference to put it in. So
So
I
give me an
misunderstood it.
example of that, what you're talking
So,
about.
so for example, when they first said that truck drivers would abandon their routes, it sounded like a very specific and strange thing to say. And at the time, I was thinking it was going to have something to do with COVID and riots. And like, I thought it was going to be, they were going to abandon their routes because it wasn't going to be safe to drive. Like that was back then when I first got that message in 2020, I was like, oh, maybe it's because it's not safe. So the truck drivers won't drive their trucks. And that could be why. Turned out it had nothing to do with that. It was, I was seeing it from the perspective of what I was hearing in the news at the time. And it turned out to be that they were voluntarily, and it wasn't a single truck driver. It was like an organized, and it was both. It was, some of it was organized, where we had, truck rallies where they were driving across the country in Canada, and then they were trying to organize rallies in the United States. There was, 100,000 truck drivers that didn't show up in the UK because the UK pulled out of sorry, I'm blanking, but since the truck drivers were no longer able to get into the country. And so there's all of these examples. There was also the fact that lots of people thought that the supply shortages were because of the ports. It turns out that it was the truck drivers that were the one of the issues, is they couldn't get enough truck drivers to take the stuff from the ports out to where it needed to go. So truck drivers for a period there just kept showing up in ways that I could never have expanded my anticipation, my understanding to encompass everything that they meant, and to even realize that truck drivers would become such a pivotal part of what happened during 2020, that they were such a pivotal part of the story.
But this is much bigger than truck
Much.
drivers. Just, I mean,
Yeah.
this is huge. This is
Yeah.
what you've said in the past. This is a planetary event, and everyone will witness it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, we might not have the awareness of what that actually means, but it sounds phenomenal. I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
like it is what you're saying. It is the moment where history changes. Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Absolutely. It is the moment where we change, which is much more important because then we make history. Like, it's one thing to have history change. It's another thing to say, who are the history creators? It's us. And if we change, then history is different forevermore. Right. And that's the thing that's, they have said, like, how is it that we're meant to become, like, the ultimate goal, as they say, is that we are meant to become galactic citizens, that we're meant to reconnect to our origins back out there. But the only way we can do it, they said, is that before they will come to us, especially so specifically talking to you and your expertise and your deep knowledge on that subject, that they've said that we have to have world peace. Before they can come, we have to achieve world peace. And there's no way we can do that. If you look at the world right now, there's no way, unless we are different. Like, we would have to change in order to achieve world peace. And that's exactly what's going to happen.
Well, we have to, and the only way you're saying we're going to change is with this light. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing else has worked so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and are they doing this, or are they predicting that it's coming, or I mean, is it this universe itself telling us? I mean, why is this coming now? Because we have to change, yes, but is this something that's generated by a force so we can change?
Well, when I have asked, like, what is driving the shift in consciousness, they say it's the earth herself, that the earth herself is ready to shift into a higher frequency. Just like we clear things and we go through, right, leveling up our consciousness, she is going to lift her consciousness, and we are on the earth. So she moves to a higher frequency. In order to stay here, we have to match that frequency. So she's the driver. And we, being on the planet, we are like the neurons of the earth. We are her thoughts. And if she needs to level up her thinking, well, then we got to scrub our thoughts. we got to raise our vibe, and we got to match who she is. So what they've said is that we have the rest of our natural lives. We have the rest of our lives as they will play out as we have agreed on this planet to shift our consciousness. But then once we leave, no one can come back to the planet who is not in alignment, in resonance with her higher frequency. So you can only reincarnate here if you have shifted your vibration.
Or reincarnate somewhere else where the
Yeah.
vibration.
There's another planet, right? There's another, and there's absolutely no judgment in that, which is so important to know, that some souls will know that for themselves, that they will make faster progress if they stay within a karmic construct. And so they will choose to go to the other planet because there they can continue the journey that they're on and hopefully make faster progress than they will here when those constraints are gone.
But what you said about it coming from the earth is the message that the Kogis put out recently. Did you see that message from the
No,
mother?
no.
Oh, they've said that towards the end of what you're predicting, the end of 2026, if we
Yeah.
don't change,
Yeah.
the Earth is going to come in and do whatever. But the light's coming from outside the Earth,
Yeah.
but there's obviously a relationship between the Earth, which is a
Hmm.
conscious being, and other solar bodies or galactic. So
Yeah.
so this thing is coming, and you've also said it's going to be really when it looks like it's the darkest, right? So talk about what may precipitate all this happening.
Oh, you mean in terms of what kind of events are leading up to it?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
so there we are in a process of unwinding that and the thing is to recognize that there's a lot of difficult stuff that we have already been through starting with 2020. We've been on a pathway where you can call it the poly crisis. We are like the frogs in the pot of boiling water where it used to be that when something bad would happen it would be on the front page of the news for weeks. Hurricane Katrina, we were talking about it for weeks. And now horrible things happen and they're on the news for a day. And then tomorrow it's a different horrible thing. That it's the pace of crazy has just gone up and up and up and up. And this is on purpose. There is right now, the phase that we are in is the moment to heal. This is our opportunity for us to do one of the most important things we can do on earth, which is to understand ourselves. So we are being put in a place where we are being squozen like never before, both personally and as a and for humanity within our culture, within our broader societies, within the global consciousness. We're being squozen. So we're being drawn into increasing and increasing polarity. And this is for the purpose of bringing things up to the surface. So think about how many social movements we've had, that things that have always been talked about but never brought to the surface, things that were always sort of pushed down. We had the Me Too movement, we've had the Black Lives Matter movement, we've had all these things that were just brushed under the rug for the longest time, that finally came up to the surface to be said, like, this is who we have been, this is who we are. And those are incredible clearing, purging moments. And the reason this is so important is that this lifetime is unlike any other lifetime we've ever had. That every other lifetime we have come to the planet, we plan our lives and we decide before we come in, we say, okay, in this life, I would like to work on, this particular experience. I want to experience myself in this way. And so in order to do that, I have 2 or 3 other past lives that will help me to ground in those energies where I know if I need to have this wound and this wound, I can pull them up from these other past lives, and we will draw those 2 or 3 lives into this life. And we will usually lay the groundwork for those in that between birth and age 7, and it usually be through our parents. And that's kind of how we structure a life. And I've seen all this. I've seen it in my dreams. I've seen myself planning this life in my dreams and seen all how this happens. So, but in this life, it's totally different. In this life, the Akashic records are open. That was not the case in the past. And in the past, very few people actually had access to the Akashic records. This life, everybody, you can go as deep as you want to go. And that's because, so this is the last, this is like the bonus crazy round, the bingo round, when you can grab as many things as you want, like how much can you clear? And it's not really about clearing is a word we use in healing, but it's really about integrate. It's how many aspects of yourself can you draw to you and integrate and understand. And the reason for this, the best metaphor I can think of to say, why do we want to do this? Why do we want to throw ourselves into our own healing? Which is like, this is the period right now, is like the critical time for how can we heal ourselves and how can we heal society? That when we are on the other side, souls, a soul that does not know itself well on the other side looks like a blurry, fuzzy soul. Looks like a soul that is, more like an incandescent kind of glowy light bulb, sort of a soft glow, And that's a soul that and that's because if you think about the light of the soul is like all these different rays of light that are all going in all different directions, right? There's like, here's an aspect of me, and here's an aspect of me, and here's an aspect, and it's just this soft glow. None of them are really owned. And then when a soul gets to know itself, it begins to take all those pieces and bring them in And gradually that light becomes increasingly coherent, where all of those pieces become part of your central column of light. And what ends up happening is that soul becomes crisper and crisper, like a laser beam, where you become this polished, bright spark of light, right? And that is a soul that knows itself. And that is the work that we're doing, because we're trying to get to the place where we understand who we are. And now is the time to do it. So this is why things are getting increasingly crunchy. It's a big piece of it. The other big piece of it is that in order for evolution to happen, you have to free up energy. And energy is constant. We can't add energy to the system or take energy away from the system. So the only way to create the energy needed for a huge evolution of consciousness is to break apart the old systems. We have to free up energy from the things that have been heavy in order to provide energy for the huge shift that's coming.
Well, okay, I have a couple of questions. And I'm not saying it's not important, but why is this important? What is the purpose of this evolution? I mean, we all come from source, we go back, and we're in this process, which is sort of an illusion, a Maya, but somehow it seems we're here to do that and it's important, but why is it important, if that makes
Why
sense?
is it important to know ourselves? I mean, I think
Get
that
to
is
know
why we were.
ourselves and become a crystallized soul because it's all the source anyway, playing with its own illusion, or maybe it's not. Maybe that's just a very limited way of thinking about it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
why is this? Yeah, I
Why do
that's
we do it?
yeah.
Yeah. I think it all stems from the reason why we were birthed as souls to begin with, which is that concept of, imagine being in a completely dark room by yourself, all the lights turned off, you're in a sensory deprivation chamber. You have no feeling, you have no thought, you have nothing outside of you. You just have you. And you're in that space. You can't feel your body, you can't feel your surroundings. You're literally just alone with your thoughts. And so, in that space, imagine this is Source in a sensory deprivation chamber. And Source says, who am I? Like, I'm floating in this nothingness. Who am I? Like, where am I? Who am I? What am I doing? What is this place? What's happening to me? Who am I? Right? Always coming back to who am I? Well, the only way to understand yourself in that context is to be able to see yourself from the outside, to be able to look back at yourself, right? To see yourself from an outside perspective. So in that moment, source comes apart and becomes two, right? And in that moment, it's literally like the way that they show it to me is that, and this is true on every single level, that it's literally like when if you've ever played pool and you have the white ball and you've got the triangle balls and you hit the white ball hits the triangle and boom, all the balls go all at once. That this is what happened, that this is like the Big Bang when source says, who am I? And then separates itself, himself, herself in order to see itself, boom, right? The creation of everything. It is that moment, because it's the same thing for us when we decide to incarnate. When a soul decides to become to earth and make one life, you don't make one life, you make all lives at the same time, because there is no such thing as time. So you say, I want to incarnate on earth, and they say, great, you're going to have 1,245 lives. That's the pool, right? You hit the ball and boom, there they all are. They're all happening all at once. So the big question at the beginning of it all was, who am I? So each of us in that process of that question, it's like it unfolds and it unfolds and it unfolds. We have the initial question of who am I? But then it says, okay, well, okay, if I am that, well, how do I be that when I am a poor Hungarian father? How do I be that when I'm a perpetrator of heinous crimes? How do I be that when I see it from all these different angles, right? When I see myself as, the young child who dies of like leukemia, how do I behave? What is my life, my experience? Who am I when I'm put in this particular kind of box? That is how I understand myself. And it's the process. It all stems from the original question from source of who am I? Because we are all source. But every time you take it a step, it opens up almost another question of, okay, great. Well, if I'm at that in this life, who am I if I play the opposite role? And it can continue to expand and expand and expand and add, forever until we begin this process of taking all the pieces and bringing them back in. And the goal is to expand all the way out like a breath. Everything comes back to, we can understand everything from the human body. We have the inhale, expand as big as you can, and then the exhale, bring it all back to center so that at the end, we all come back and unify back with source.
Right. So the purpose of consciousness, from what I've heard, is to know itself. I mean,
Yes.
the consciousness, and so this process of humans awakening
Yeah.
is a way consciousness will know itself. And yet there seems like there's a force outside of us because we're not getting it. So because we're not getting it, this other thing is going to come in and do like an intervention. Would you say it's like an intervention of a sort, or is this a natural phenomena that would happen anyway? It's either we're prepared or not, because there are people now prepared for a
Yeah.
big shift and
Yeah.
are actually shifted to that level. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
There,
is it?
yeah, there is a certain amount of like where is humanity going to go from here? Like there is a certain amount of like, are we ready to come along with like Earth is going, the ship is leaving, right? Earth is going to be shifting to a new consciousness. Do we get to stay on planet Earth as a collective or do we not? You know? And so there is a truth to it that we as humanity have to achieve a certain level of consciousness in order to, it's just, I mean, it's physics. It's like if you can't resonate, if you can't play a high enough pitch instrument to be in that orchestra, you can't be in the orchestra or you're going to sound like the turd in the punch bowl. You got to match, you know? And so there's truth in that. We have this life to get it sorted out. And I think it's looking pretty good, and we're going to have this flash of light is coming to help us. We have this massive awakening that is, you think we're having a lot of awakening now, just wait. Like it is going to be like a sea of people waking up.
So what do we need to do to prepare? I mean, yes, people are, yeah, talk about because in your mind, there's no doubt that something is happening. And Bashar didn't say a flash of light, but he says there'll be open contact. Other people have said things. So how do we best prepare for this huge, huge shift?
The biggest thing that we can do that's going to shepherd us through these changes with ease is to understand that we have to trust and have faith that we are creating our own reality. And we have to understand that even though things may be very difficult externally, that there could be craziness going on outside, to not get sucked into the crazy. And when you need to, pull down the blinds, close the door, go internal, focus on love. This is the most critical thing that we need to do is focus on love internally. Work on your own integration of yourself, on self-love, and work on that is it. That's the number one most important thing. The second most important thing we got to do, like they said, the flash of light is available to everyone. What determines whether or not we move into the flash of light or we resist the flash of light is the degree to which we are willing to release what is. And so, is there anything that you are so attached to? I was just thinking about this the other day because I was listening. I'm into dreams and I like to listen to other people's dreams on YouTube. And I was listening to this person talk about that she had a dream that was like, and I don't know anything. I'm sorry, I don't know much about the Bible at all or different religious texts, but there's a story about a woman who turns into salt because she turns around and looks that
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
but
She's
Lot's
going,
wife. Yeah, they were
yeah,
leaving Sodom and Gomorrah, and they said, "Don't
yes,
look back," and she
yes.
does. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So
And I think she's probably turning around to like look to see if her kids are coming or to look to see like whatever reason she's turning around to look to see. Well, I think that is a metaphor for this idea of we need to lean into what is new, to open up to what is new, which by the way, we cannot perceive unless we are willing to let go of what was. That we are going to be seeing things that are outside of the realm of our expectations. And if we are looking for what we expect to see, we will not see it. So the idea that we can turn our back on it if we are looking for what we expect to see, if we're turning around and saying, well, wait, okay, yeah, I'm totally willing to come, but let me just go get my 5 suitcases, right? I want to bring these, I can come, but I want my collection of spoons that I gathered from all over the world, whatever it is, right? We're like, oh, what if you're really like heartbroken because something big has happened and you've lost something you care about? Right. And if you cannot let go of that, you are not open to perceive what is new. So this concept of release and allow, they tell it to me over and over again, release and allow.
but you've said well, from what I'm hearing, two different things. First,
Yes.
we create a reality,
Yep.
and then there's things we can't perceive. We have to. So that seems like a contradiction. If people are creating the reality of what they want to hold on to, that's the reality they're creating. So there's this other thing that's
Mhm.
creating the reality for us because we're not going with the flow. I mean, so it sounds like a bit of a contradiction. You know what I
No, it's
mean?
actually so yeah, thanks for bringing it up, but no, it's actually so let me go back and show the difference between the two. So option one is we decide that we're attached to the way things were and we're focused, our expectations are focused on that. Our awareness is focused on that. We are creating more of that, but that is in the process of disintegration. It's in a process of loss. So that is our experience. If we let go of that and we allow ourselves to move into the flash of light, they say the flash of light will take us up the staircase, but it will not push us through the door. That is the choice. And the choice, we resist the door if we're attached to what was and we're staying in that lower frequency. When we go through the door, then all of a sudden we go through this truly metamorphic process that is going to happen to our bodies. In that process, this is way out there, but it's so cool, there is a second aspect of us. This is the first time it's ever happened in human history. We were born with two aspects in the same body of our soul. We have our lower frequency self and we have this higher frequency self, which has been there all along. And when we go through this process, the higher frequency self is born like a new consciousness that comes out of us. And from that higher perspective, we begin to create the new reality, which will be outside of our expectations. They said that after we move through this process, we will come through it and we will feel like we have brain fog. We will feel like things are fuzzy and we can't quite see and it will be confusing. But it's not because there's anything wrong with us. It's because the new reality does not fully exist yet, that we are in the process of creating it as we move into it.
So I think how I understand this is, yes, we create a reality, except we don't, because on the human level, on the ego level, we don't create it, but this higher aspect of ourselves is pushing us towards evolution, and that's really the reality we're creating. Is that sort of what you're saying? Because on the lower level, obviously, we're not creating a reality because we're not creating the flash of light on the ego level, right? You know
So
what I mean?
great question. It's both. It's both. It's almost like we are inside of a bubble. And then inside of the bubble, we are creating a reality within the context of what's possible inside the bubble with all the materials that are available to us. We create with what's here. Like we create through resonance, but we can only resonate with things that exist within the bubble that we're in. But who creates the bubble? And who defines what's inside the bubble? And that's the higher consciousness that defines it. So, but within the bubble, we create. And it's not 100% like the angels intervene. So say, for example, you are in the bubble and you are creating your reality, but the way that that's going to look, it's going to be, okay, you, Alan, say, okay, I am ready for a mind altering experience. It's going to shift me in a profound way. And you are vibrating this out into the world. And so there's all these mind altering experiences that you could potentially line up with. So they play with within the bubble. They help us to make sure that it's almost like I think of it as like bowling, and you're kind of we are bowling, but we've got gutter guards up where the angels are the gutter guards. And but within that lane, we can go all over the place.
Right, but in the limited bubble that people exist in, the reality is not necessarily working for them anymore. And that's why the angels are coming in and shifting the whole context of Earth reality now, right?
I would say no, that it is the earth, like I said, the earth herself she's a conscious being and she is just she's ready to move to a higher state of consciousness. So there's never any judgment in anything. That's the thing that I always come back to, that there's never a moment that we are wrong or we are right. We are always just are. And so the idea that we didn't do it right or we're not good enough or that we are somehow like got off the wagon and now they got to kind of give us a big kick in the fanny. I keep saying that word. I can't say that word because it means something else in other countries. A kick in the rear. How about that? That's better. But 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 so it's not so much that, it's just literally that we are riding along on the earth. And more so than riding along, we are her thoughts. And if she wants to shift, we have to shift. So it's not a thing where they looked at us, some higher, being said, "Oh, you guys are late. You guys are late to lunch and you get no fruit cup." It's not going to be that. It's going to be, okay, if you guys want to stay on this planet, you got to be in harmony with the planet.
But we've also talked about, and you did a great presentation at the Sedona Transcendence Retreat, and
Thank you.
it's going to be in Sedona in March at the Sedona Ascension Retreat. But you've also talked, there's a whole maybe major population on the planet that has no idea about transformation,
Yeah.
any of this, and those people are going to have a rude awakening. So talk about that and what
Yeah.
we could do for those people.
Absolutely. And it will be like it is like what I have seen is that the experiences that are coming, if you were to come into them with no understanding of the bigger picture, with no conception at all of like where we are headed and why this is happening, that it may be a very, very scary time for a lot of people. There may also, because the frequencies are increasing on the planet, there are even now, the angels said, like right before this last huge wave of solar energy hit the planet, they told us we were going to be in this onslaught where just like crazy solar flares, solar flares. All of those are shifting us. So there are people who are being woken up all over the place who like a year ago, they were like, I was fine, like being an accountant and doing my thing. And then all of a sudden I start seeing crazy visions, you know? And so it's happening now, but it will be even more so. And those people who are resistant to the flash of light and to the energies that are coming may find themselves desperately searching for answers. And so there, I think what we will see will be an enormous call to the spirit. People are going to be looking, and that's why all the light workers are here. Like the go time is after the flash of light. Like that is when so many people are going to be needing help.
So, getting back to creating your reality, the higher mind of these people that are don't have a clue, let's say, are actually creating the reality of evolution, whether they know it or not. That's why because we've also in conjunction with the earth. So, is that right? A part of them wants to change, the earth wants to change, people who are awake and want to change. So the people who don't know anything are also pushing for this change, or else they wouldn't create that reality, right? Or is that,
I would
I,
say that they are in a bubble that is changing. We talked about who creates the bubble, what happens if the bubble is changing around you. And it isn't so much that the bubble is changing, it is like cell mitosis, where if you imagine you have the ones just like one cell and this cell starts to pull apart, well, are they going to stay in the old frequency? Are they going to move to the new frequency? So the bubble is shifting. So they're currently, and some of them are going to say, no way, I'm sticking with my old bubble. That old bubble is not going to be so great, you know, unfortunately. And then, or they can move into the new happy bubble, which I highly recommend.
well, it's another type of question. Have you ever channeled the earth itself? Have you ever connected with that being?
I
And
have, yeah.
what has the earth said to you?
Oh my gosh. You know, it's so funny because when I channel, it's hard for me to recall specifically, but I've channeled her a couple of times. She came through just recently in the final stages of my soul convergence program. She came through and and did an entire healing that was absolutely beautiful. But I know that we are meant to, like as we move into the new higher state of consciousness, our relationship with the earth changes dramatically, that we become the guardians of the earth, that we learn to live in harmony with the earth. And it's a completely different relationship to her where we can feel her in a much more profound way. So yeah, so it's, I mean, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful what we move to. It's literally been like where we have been. It's not like we're like inherently like humanity isn't like evil. We're not like, it's just that we are just unaware. You know, we don't hear, we don't know, we have no connection. We're living inside our own little bubble and we only see things from our own perspective and we're not aware of the impact. If we could feel the earth in the way that we will going forward, we would behave completely differently. And
Well,
so like, yeah,
describe that, how you feel it, how we would feel it, how we could feel the earth. How do you feel it?
I think it will be beyond feeling the earth. It'll be feeling everything that they've just said that when we go through this process, one of the biggest changes that's going to happen when we go through the flash of light is that we will develop a sixth sense. And so then, so, you know, many of your listeners are probably already very tuned in and connected and potentially connected to their spiritual gifting. But imagine a level of awareness in terms of your spiritual gifting that is beyond anything that you have right now. So we have the five senses. And if you think about your five senses, that your sense of sight is the most powerful sense that you have. And it gives you much more information than your sense of touch, for example. Like you can really only use touch if you're actually on something, whereas sight, you can see miles away and you get loads of information. Our sixth sense is going to be as much of a difference as it is between touch and sight. The difference between sight and sixth sense is going to be 100x, that much more information. And when we get there, when we get this new, we won't lose the five senses. It's just that they're going to be like less, they just provide less information. They become less important to us. And we will navigate through the sixth sense. And the sixth sense will provide us a connection. And we think of it as connection to one another because that's where we feel the most currently. Like we feel like, when we think of connection, we think about how do I connect to another person? Because that is where our emotions get engaged. And we could say in the future, what that connection will feel like is rather than they say something and you say something and you're having your experience of their words and they're having their experience of your words, totally different. It will be a thing where you feel what it is to be them and you feel their emotions as you are speaking to them. So for example, if I was to say something insensitive and it hurts your feelings, I would know immediately because I would be feeling your experience of everything I communicated and vice versa. So there's no hard feelings. But now you extrapolate on that and you say, we are used to having connection just with one another. What if you had connection to everything on earth? In the same way that we think about connection to one another, where you feel the streams, where you feel the trees, where you know what they're thinking, with animals that you perceive them in a deep way, that it's a completely different way of existing.
Well, talk about yourself, if you don't mind, a little bit, because you were this other person
Yeah.
that wasn't aware of these things, and these beings showed up, and then suddenly something in you came online. So who you were then and who you are now is sort of, in a way, what you're describing that everyone will go through, but even more intensely, right? Would you say
Yeah,
that?
yeah. And I
It,
had the luxury of time, mine unfolded over time. And I mean, I would say, is that a luxury or not? I think probably not a luxury because mostly it's like running into a lot of doors, like just trying to figure it out. I spent so much time just trying to understand what was happening to me and what was going on. But yeah, whereas I think people now with the flash and with all the support that's going to be here with all the light workers and everything that's happening, it will be, I think, and especially because so many people will be going through it, that it will be easier than it was for those of us who jumped on the train a little early.
so who you
For
were
you who
then,
jumped on the train a long time ago. Yeah.
I have, we're all on this train. But I'm thinking like I always had a sense of the mystic, and maybe you did
Yeah.
too, but who you were before is very different from who you are now. So when you look back at that, what do you sense about that other Anne that you were compared to who you are now, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. The biggest difference is my heart was closed. Is that back then I was not, and that's not like most people's heart is closed. The majority of humanity has their heart closed. And that's absolutely understandable. There's no fault in that. It comes because we have experiences usually in that, and a lot of them happen, believe it or not, in the womb before you're even born. But we are very perceptive in the womb, and all the way up through age 7, we have these traumatic events and we protect ourselves. We go into fight or flight, and for me, it meant like jumping out of my body. When things get tricky, I'm out there somewhere. I'm not feeling my feelings at all. And that's me shutting the heart down because it was, there's a lot of pain, a lot of sadness that I didn't want to feel. And so the hard thing when your heart is closed is you don't feel loved because your heart isn't open to receive love, and you have a hard time feeling love for others. You can't feel the depth of what is actually there. You really can't get to the heart of who you are, which is pure love, but it's hard to access it. You might feel loving compassion, you might feel, gentleness towards others, but it's hard to get to the good stuff, until you get that heart open. And so it's really a true thing that like when my first child was born, part of the conditioning that he got from me, and he's had dreams about it. He had a dream showing that he was on a plane that was crash landing in the Brazilian jungle onto a small iceberg. And this was me. That was my womb. That was him. The crash landing means a plane coming down in a difficult berth, which it was. He was sunny side up. And the Brazilian, thank gosh, he got Brazilian jungle because that means hot, warm. That means that there was love there. That means that dig deep down that I was a deeply loving person, but he had to land on the iceberg, which was that I was terrified of having a child and my heart was closed. And so the iceberg was the frozen part of me that had to melt away. And then he had to heal that. You know, what I gave him was that experience of being born to a mom who was terrified of being a mom. My kids helped me to break open a little bit. And then every experience I had throughout my life. And even now I'm always working on myself. I'm always seeing the places where I could open to love a little bit more, a little bit more. There'll always be a little bit more until we are one with source.
So you're saying though, on a planetary level, the flash comes and boom, in a sense, everyone's heart sort of starts to open. Is that sort of what you're getting?
It is the combination of the heart opening and so the big thing that needs to happen is the balancing of our masculine and feminine energies, which is the process of opening to love. But it's about self-love. We start with loving ourselves and then we can turn around and love one another. Self-love means taking all these different aspects all the different directions of light that I was talking about and taking each one of those things, like, that you that was hurt when you were 12 years old because someone said something mean, you got to take that self and bring them back. That you that, whatever, all these things, these terrible experiences you've had, terrible things you may have done or things that were done to you, you have to take them all and bring them back into your heart. This is the process of balancing our masculine and feminine energies. We carry the wounds and it puts us off balance. We bring ourselves back into wholeness, which is opening the heart. And that then strengthens our connection, brings us back into connection with our higher self. It creates space inside of you so more of your higher self can come into the physical body. And so this is how we shift our awareness. But yeah, so it is the process when the flash of light comes. So this is actually important for people to know. When the flash of light comes, there will be, hopefully everybody will remember to just shut the world out, be internal, focus on love. But they said that there will be a moment when the body starts to feel extremely heavy, like it just will feel like your body weighs 1 billion pounds. They say when that happens, just go lay down anywhere, go lay down. And it is the process of separating from our karma. That the body, the weight of the karma, as we're moving into this higher frequency, the weight of the karma cannot come with us. So we will literally lift off from it. But the separating from it, it's a little bit like G-forces as you're trying to lift off the planet, is it will pull against us. So you need to just lay down, rest, and just let it happen. And the angels will take care of it. They're going to help us across.
How many days would that of a process would that be, you think?
I don't know. I don't know. I know that it won't be a thing that we have to worry about. Like, what if and this is so funny. People are always asking, like, what if I have to let my dog out to go to the bathroom? Like, what if I'm taking care of someone? They said, don't worry. The angel said, don't worry. Everyone is going to be suspended in the same sort of almost like suspended animation they're like, don't worry about others. You need to focus in this moment. You need to focus on yourself and focus on your journey. Everyone is having, they said, even the animals are going to be going through their own process, their own metamorphosis, but they will change in a different way. They said the animals will be developing, it's like their evolution, whereas ours is really a heart evolution. They are going to be changing where they will become more cerebral. So when they're on the other side, when we get to this new state of consciousness, we will be able to communicate with them in a much more like it'll be telepathic. But it will be like, we'll say like, hey, don't, sit on the couch. And the animal will say, but I like the couch. It'll be like a conversation, you know? So
Well, so this is really a fifth dimensional, what people have called the fifth dimension, but and then there's this huge adjustment. I mean, you could call it whatever you want, fourth, fifth, whatever. But there's a huge adjustment for the rest of humanity that's going to be part of a process, right? And
yes, yeah. There'll be the early way showers who will go across right away. And then their job is to turn around and try to help everybody else through. And it's all for one and one for all. We're trying to bring as anybody who wants to come, the door's wide open. And the goal, our job is to try to help anybody who needs help. And that's really kind of what's happening right now, or
how are
going to
we
be
going
happening.
to, how will we, okay, so I mean, it's going to be intense, first of all, like, and it's coming soon, this flash of light, and it's
Yeah.
like, you say by the end of, before the end of 2026 is what you're feeling, right?
My guess, because so the reason I think that is if I look at everything that's happened and kind of so what the things that have happened so far that they talked about, and they do seem to be selective about what they share. So they said, for example, all back in 2026, they said, I told you about they talked about supply chain issues really before they happened. And then they said the price of goods would become very expensive, which they have. They said that the US would lose its political hegemony. And they talked about difficulties with payment processing and all kinds of stuff, like create things that were very, very specific things, but turned out to be pivotal parts of the thing unraveling. It's like they would drop these little things that seemed little, but when you put them in the big picture, you realize like who knew that truck drivers were going to be the key, one of the major stories of 2020? Who knew how does the US lose its political hegemony? Because of payment processing. It started with when the US decided to weaponize the dollar and put financial sanctions on Russia, and they prevented them from processing payments through SWIFT. And when that happened, that was the beginning of that was a major turning point in the US losing its power, its global power. Because when they weaponized the dollar, up until that point, the dollar had been the world's reserve currency. And when the rest of the world realized, oh my gosh, here we have this reserve currency that the US is now using as a weapon against us, they put sanctions on Russia. They could sanction any of us. So then Saudi Arabia, when the agreement for the petrodollar, when we had this 50-year agreement that came up for renewal, where all transactions for oil were going to be settled in US dollars, the Saudi Arabia chose not to renew. And this just happened. And this is because of what happened with Russia and the SWIFT. So this is, and then now we have BRICS creating, and we have, I mean, you can see this is unfurling, where, it is, we are on a crazy, it's not even a slow train. And it's crazy to me that nobody seems to be talking about it, because these are like not even woo-woo things. These are like things in the world. These are real like things that people would, like scientists would be like, this is a thing that's happening, but nobody seems to be connecting the dots.
You got that from your angels, that whole sequence of
Absolutely.
events.
Before it happened. Yeah, they told me this was going to happen. This was going to happen. This was going to happen. So I see all this happening. And I'm, my eyes are this big. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is, and so the things that have yet to come, and they don't give me dates, but they kind of say this happens before that, or this happens in the middle of that. So I kind of get, and there seems to be, from, if I'm interpreting what they've said correctly, it's like there's a cluster of events that seem to all kind of happen near or around the same time. So I would say within probably the same 12-month period, all of these events might occur. And they include the major economic digger, like where the stock market, not a little thing, they said it would dip and then it would plunge. And we just had a dip. We had a 10% stock market dip just recently. They said it would dip and then it would plunge. And the plunge would be not a gentle thing. And then they said that the banks would close. And they talked a lot about this, that it would be tied to secrets being revealed. And there's all this kind of stuff around the banks shutting down. And that when that happens, that's why they've been telling people to please have some cash on hand. They said we will not be able to process payments, which means if we can't process payments, that doesn't mean that you have to worry about paying your rent or paying your mortgage. It means that you think about food, gas, stuff like that, like just basic needs. That's the kind of cash you got to have on hand for, and I don't know how long it'll be. It might be a couple months. I have no idea, but you want to have some stuff available for yourself and have some cash available for yourself, so you're not in a jam if that happens. But so anyways, they've been talking about this for a while. Well, then all of a sudden I start hearing these themes come out in mainstream media where they're starting to talk about, oh my gosh. And now it's like everyone is talking about, oh, the market's going to take a digger. It's coming soon. Well, I heard this years ago, like 4 years ago is when they told me about this. Now it's coming. Right now, everybody's saying it could be any time. And the Fed is desperately trying to lower rates, which is just going to make the problem worse. So this is happening. Then they said, right around the same time as the economy collapsing, we may or may not see the death of a president, the death of a leader. They did not say president. I always have to be so careful not to interpret what they say, because I can get in the way. They said that we may or may not see the death of a leader. And they said he would die in a night, that he would go to the hospital, but he wouldn't make it, basically. And they said it would be a leader whose followers were disenfranchised. So
Mm.
that was a specific way they described this leader. The leader whose followers felt disenfranchised would die in a night, and that it would create riots where people where they felt that this leader spoke their voice and now they have no leader, and it would create, and this was a pivotal, the reason why they mentioned it is because it would then be one more nail in the coffin of the functioning government, and the United States would even more begin to start falling apart. And what would end up happening would be that we're not going to, they didn't say civil war. They said there would be riots, that we can definitely expect riots is what they were saying. But it would be this, that states would just pull out, is that they would just stop participating. And we would end up with the United States not looking the way that it does today.
Well, I would say the ununited states, it would
Yeah,
be that.
yeah. So,
But,
and they said all of this kind of happens in one cluster. And then I believe they said the Earth rift happens around this time as well. So,
and
so
then the
yeah, so big
flash.
stuff.
After the Earth rift, then comes the flash.
Well, this is, and I could be getting it wrong because, like I said, they're not great on timing, but I believe so. This is kind of the cluster of events I think we're heading to. Then they gave a whole message about once the United States is kind of has our eye not on the ball, that we're not really with it because we've got our own internal problems. China then goes after, asserts its control over Taiwan. And then they said that Japan would rally the rest of the world against China. And then this expands war. And it's like another doorway opens to greater war. And that then goes through 2025. So lots of war in 2025. And then there's other stuff happening at the same time, craziness. And then we get to the flash of light. And that's what kind of makes everything stop.
You're saying this though, as if it's for certain, for sure. And is it? I mean, the other things happen, but is this uh, an absolute future, or is it a possible future that may or may not? I mean, I'm not challenging your work because I think you're great and I know you're bringing through what you're hearing, but is it absolute? Is
Yeah,
what I'm
thanks. Yeah, I mean, thank you for asking, because I don't know. Like, all I can say is that the things that they have said, many things have already happened. But one of the thoughts that came to me was the leader they talk about that dies. It sounded an awful lot like Trump to me, because especially when they use the word disenfranchised, and this was years ago that this came through, 4 years ago that came through, and he was the one who had the vote, the stolen vote and all that, which is like people feeling like they don't have a vote, which made me think of his followers, made me think of Trump. But then he has had 2 assassination attempts. So that makes me think, okay, that is and the way the angels speak of things, it is as energies. There's an energy coming to the planet that will be this kind of an energy. So was that the energy of it? And did he escape it? Possibly. It could be. So I don't know. It could be that maybe it's possible through the power of our own, our own positive thinking, that maybe we are able to lessen. If we were able, maybe if we ever, like, if the whole world got like double down and we all started healing, would these events lessen? Probably, but I don't know for sure.
But the thing you are feeling absolutely is that there's a huge shift that is imminent, right? That
Yeah.
it's big, something
Yeah.
big, big, big is coming. And you actually, some people inside the government, there was a guy who wrote a book called Imminent, this guy Lou Elizondo. He was
Mm.
an insider in the UFO field. He doesn't talk about the flash of light, but he says something is imminent, and maybe
Yeah.
it's the UFOs, or maybe, but other people in the government have said, yes, there's an event that from these ET connections that are saying is coming. So
Yeah.
maybe the event, the flash of light, whatever is imminent, whatever's happening, everyone can feel there's a acceleration of energy, right? Would you say?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, as we're talking about it, like, I think the key thing for people to know is that we can start living in, and a lot of people know this, we can start living in the higher frequencies even now, that we are meant to lean into it. It's like we are in this process of this mitosis. There is higher and higher states of awareness that are available to us at every moment. And we can lean into that, and we can have a better experience of this really, really difficult time. But there are also going to be available to us a really not so fun experience of this time. So it's a thing that to recognize that to always to check back in with yourself and say, what am I feeling right now? How am I experiencing my reality? Can I move into a more acceptance, and more acceptance of myself, and more acceptance of what is? And that's the pathway to get into a higher state of being.
Well, I think that's really key what you said, leaning into it. Give us like something really practical because whatever is coming is sort of here in a sense for those feeling it. So, how do you actually, what do you need to do practically to lean into that wave?
The best thing I would say is to have a practice of being increasingly self aware of what is happening inside of your body, is to be still with yourself. If you just developed a practice, like just check in with yourself, you can even set yourself a little alarm, check in with yourself. How am I what am I feeling right now? If I am feeling anxiety, typically, if I'm feeling this feeling like I'm kind of keyed up and I'm anxious, that sensation typically comes because there's a feeling underneath it that I'm trying not to feel. And it's pushing up against, and that what's up here is it makes you feel anxious, like you can't, almost like your diaphragm can't relax and take a breath. There's some emotion that's coming up. And so the interesting thing is if you were to take a minute and to sit down and to say, okay, first is the anxiety, sit with the anxiety without judgment and let the anxiety rise. And then as you process that and just sit with it and let it be, let yourself and say, yes, I am anxious. Here it is. I'm going to face my anxiety. Underneath the anxiety, what is creating your anxiety? What are you truly feeling? And to just open up and don't be in a hurry, take your time and recognize underneath the anxiety, there may be the fear that no one's going to look out for you, or there may be the fear that there's not enough for you, or the fear that like there's going to be something in there. And the thing that's important to recognize in that moment is that feeling that's rising is not new. That feeling has always been there. It's always been there. And it's come. You probably brought it in from a past life. You brought it in from your childhood. The only feeling is, and this is not the first time you felt it. And so you can you can heal what's happening in your current reality by spending time with the feeling that is underneath, by going into that and feeling that original feeling of feeling like, if you feel like there's never enough for you and you're worried about like, oh my gosh, there's going to be scarcity and I'm having anxiety, sit with the anxiety, let it come up. And then underneath the feeling, there's never enough for me. Okay, there it is. Sit with how bad that feels and delve into it. Let it expand. The guiding, the healing process. I have a healing process on my YouTube channel that people can use where the angels will guide them through this process of how to release an emotion like this. But the idea is to take a breath, close your eyes, assign that somewhere in the body, find a space in the body. It may be like in your ribs, it may be in your leg, find it. Like, where do you feel the heaviness of that feeling of there's never enough for me, whatever it is. Sit with it, feel it. You might, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, just find it in the body, give it a color, and then do your best to feel that feeling as hard as you can and just expand that color. If the color, say you're going to see that feeling is the color purple, make it as big as you can in your body. Fill your whole body with that color and with that emotion to turn headlong into that wave of emotion and feel it as hard as you can. And the feeling, most people worry that the feeling will take over and they will never get back from it. But the truth is, if you just let it fill you up, then at a certain point, it's like you can't feel it. It literally will pass in 90 seconds. If you truly feel it and you just let it move through you, it starts to dissipate and you're trying to feel it, trying to feel it, trying to feel it. And pretty moon, you're like, wait, where did it go? I lost it for a second. And then it comes back and then you lost it for a second and then it's gone and it moves. And then you can open your eyes and the anxiety is gone.
So this is going to be happening to everyone, these kind of after the flash. But if we want to prepare, we should deal with it now, right?
As
Is
much
that
as we can. I mean, like it's a double whammy. If you can deal with it now, you are taking advantage of one of the most unique periods in human history to heal and understand yourself, to learn about yourself. And it is like gold. This is why coming to the earth right now is like winning the lottery. This is like the best time on this best planet in the universe to learn about yourself, So it is like, this is amazing. Like, don't waste this time. Yeah. And then there's also the other piece of, yeah, the more you heal, the less friction there is in your life, the sooner you can step into this higher state of consciousness and the better your life will get.
right? No, I like what you're saying because either way, you're going to have to do this, right? I mean, everyone has to deal with these issues all the time. So as the light comes, it's an integration for everyone on the planet, and they can choose to do this or not, is what you've said.
Well, so there's an important clarification there, which is that right now is the time to heal. And every little bit of learning we do right now, we take with us, and it gives us more understanding of ourself as a soul. But at a certain point, you do not have to be fully healed in order to move into the new state of consciousness. The way I describe it is that it's like you think of Earth as like a school. Well, we've been at school, we all have a book, and this is the time to read the book, and we are in the process of reading as much of the book as we possibly can. But at a certain point, we will have the flash of light, and at that point we just have to set aside the book and we let it go. So this is the moment we lose the book. The book is our karma. We set it aside and we let it go. So now if you want to read that book, now is the time to do it, because when we go through the flash of light, it isn't so much that we don't take our karma with us, but we don't get the learning either.
Right. Well, you are so, it's sort of a responsibility. I mean, but you're so excited by it and the
Yeah.
possibility that's coming. But feels like there's something happening even now, like the last couple of nights I couldn't sleep very well. And what is that? What's going on like right now?
Oh my
Or like,
gosh. Yeah, I mean it is I mean it's intensifying. The angel said that it would be in the energies hitting the planet. And we know because we've seen crazy aurora borealis. They said it would be through November, that we would have these massive solar energies hitting through November. So, and yeah, that creates for a lot of people major physical symptoms. It is not easy to integrate the energies. It's challenging physically, emotionally, yeah, all the way.
is any suggestions how to deal with when we are challenged like that? I mean, go inward, just
The physical stuff, I mean, I think, like I said, that if it's just physical discomfort, that's a harder one. But typically physical discomfort is related to emotional discomfort often. So, sometimes it's just the body trying to process. But yeah, the emotional stuff is where the money's at right now. That is the place to go, the place and it's every trigger that hits is like gold right now. And you just want to try to go into your world as self-aware as you possibly, watching yourself all the time. When do I feel anything other than awesome? If I feel
mm.
anything other than awesome, sit down. I worked on myself this morning. I processed a huge one this morning. Oh my gosh, it was awesome.
But the big question, I mean, yes, this is happening and something's going on for everyone and will for everyone. But on the other side of it all, when we get through this and everyone has awakening and, we're all living in bliss, maybe,
Yay.
for you, what does the future look like in a big way, whenever that will be in a year, 2 years, 5 years? What does that future Earth look like for humans?
Oh, it's amazing. Like, and it's one of those things where I've always been a pretty logical, rational person, and it's taken me a long time to get to a place where I'm willing to say publicly or to even embrace myself that this new reality is possible. Because it just sounds like, airy fairy dreamland of utopia. It seems like, how could we ever do it? But more and more and more, I believe that's where we're headed. Like, I think it's beyond real. I think and I've had specific dreams showing where I got to feel what it is. The other night, I dreamt that I was living in the beginning of the dream, I was in the current reality, and I knew it was the current reality because in the dream, I'm trying to solve a problem and I'm thinking of three different possible solutions. Each one of them has ups and downs. Each one has like good and bad things about it, right? Which is total karmic experience, right? Where there's never a perfect solution. Everything is like a compromise. And then all of a sudden, first it comes in as a feeling, an emotion. Then it comes in as an awareness that it's like, oh, look, right over here. If you just shift slightly to the left, boom, you're in this higher state of being. And so I did. I kind of smooshed into the higher state of being. And then boom, I was in it. And the amazing thing is that it felt like everything was easy. It felt like all of a sudden, like I was joking about this at the Sedona thing, that it was like all of a sudden we don't have paperwork. It was literally just felt like the handcuffs came off and everything got easy. But in that new reality, when we get there, my understanding is that it's not going to happen all at once, that it's going to be a process because more and more people will shift, and we will all still be living in the same space. But I think it may be a thing where people who have moved through will more and more, and they've said that it will be like they are drawn together in the long run. The people who have reached a higher frequency, a higher state of consciousness, they said that it will feel like that there's almost like a repelling, like the way when you try to put magnets together at the wrong end and they push apart, it will be like that. And people, it will be like vibration and like vibration. And people with a higher state of consciousness will be drawn together into communities. And but it sounds amazing. They describe it as living, it's a much more dharmic, what we think of as a dharmic state of being, that
What
rather
does that
than,
mean? Yeah, what does
so
that
like
mean?
right now, the way that we live right now is we live in our current reality, but we most of the time are processing our reality from the past or the future. Like most of the time we are a moment behind and we're thinking about the moment that just happened or we're anticipating the next thing that's about to happen. And and in that process, we're creating our reality from a concept that no longer exists. We are creating reality based on patterns that we observed before. We're perceiving our reality based on expectations that were formed from the past. So we're literally living sometimes years behind what we're experiencing in the now, depending on what's happening, right? If it pattern matches with something we last experienced 10 years ago, then we're living 10 years ago and creating 10 years ago into the now. And anybody who has gone back to like a family reunion or a high school reunion and suddenly discovers themselves acting like they're 17 again, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like you're bringing that forward into the now. In the new reality, they say it will be like riding a wave. And like imagine that you are living in your present moment and you are perched on the edge of a wave and you are just coasting on the edge of the wave and you have no thought to future or past. You are literally in it. And riding the edge of a wave takes a certain amount of concentration. You have to be focused on the now because you're perched, you're balancing on the edge of this wave, and reality is coming up to meet you. But you are so aware in the moment, you are so tuned in the moment that you are able to feel and experience your reality in the now moment in its fullest depth. So say for example, like has it ever happened to you where someone says something to you and you walk away, and only after you walk away you realize, wow, that was actually kind of rude. And like I wish I had handled myself differently when they said that, or I wish I had said this instead, or whatever. We're processing it not in the moment, we're processing it afterwards. In this higher state of consciousness, we will have complete and total awareness in the moment. And we will be able to say, as something comes up, if we say, wow, this thing is rising in my reality that I'm not enjoying, I can rework it in the moment. I can change it in that instant, like Play-Doh. I can say, okay, this is rising up because it's inside of me. I'm going to look at it in the moment.
Right.
And yeah, it's a totally different way of existing.
So would you say then in 20 years or even 10 years, the Earth is going to be totally different than it is today? Could you say something like that in
I
that
have
sense?
seen visions of myself in the future. And I know in one of them, I was not on this planet. I was up there on a ship and I've seen it. And I was old, older than I am
Um,
now. I was on the oldish side,
but
but I was
in
there.
general, for everyone, it's going to be a new heaven and new earth,
Yeah.
sort of.
Yeah.
In,
Yeah.
in very short time, it
Yeah.
seems like from what you're saying.
Yeah, I think my guess is that we have, and the reason I'm guessing is based on astrology and looking at possible windows of when thing might happen, and then kind of comparing that to kind of like the general cluster of events I've kind of gotten from the angels. Like I said, I think 2026, end of the middle to end of 2026 could be when the flash of light happens. And then I think it takes us, maybe 4 years for us to kind of get settled into that energy, get enough people in that energy that world peace happens. Then when world peace happens, that is when our galactic friends come to support us and help us. And they help us with technology to help us get off the planet, technology to help us with a bunch of stuff.
Right. So definitely we are heading, we can move through this little window of chaos, really, then everything seems to open up.
Absolutely. And it is, I mean, it's the thing is, as we're going through it, it really helps to know, like, yes, it's going to be tough times for a while. And I do really recommend that people think about that it may, and we can lessen the toughness of the times based on what we're holding inside, but it will help people a lot if they have some cash on hand, if they have a big bag of rice and a big bag of beans, and do the basic things, have an emergency lantern you can turn on if the lights go out, you know what I mean? Like, do some basic Red Cross preparation stuff for yourselves.
And,
But yeah, very
but
important.
you said also when the flash of light comes, it's good not to be in the cities because people will be freaking out. So if you can be someplace
I think
with,
it's like, as long as you're in a place where you feel safe. Like if you live in a city and you feel like you can close the doors and close the windows and you're fine, just I wouldn't be out running. If everybody else is running around freaking out, don't go out there, But yeah, as long as you feel safe, like critical thing is that people need to listen to their own feelings, their own guidance. And the key to know, are you tuned in? Is that feeling that's rising about like I should move or I should stay in the same place, whatever it is it coming from the place of fear? Are you trying to avoid something, or are you embracing something through joy? So most of the time we make decisions out of fear. We're either trying to prevent something or avoid something. We're making a choice because you don't want something. That is a head decision made from fear. Any decision where you're like, wow, this would be a really joyful experience, that's heart. And that's where we want to go.
right. No, that's really good advice there. Okay, before we go, and I really appreciate everything you're sharing because you have your finger on the button of something that's just pouring through you. Do the angels want to say anything directly to this audience and
Yeah,
to
let's bring them in. You ready? You want to bring them in?
oh, yes,
All right,
yes.
let's do it. All right, get comfy. And I'll lead us to a grounding because it's important to be grounded when they bring in a lot of frequency when they come through. So we want to be grounded.
Thank you.
All right, so go ahead and drop down from your tailbone a nice thick root and follow it through the ground or through the floor and down into the ground. And follow it down with your mind as it grows and extends, growing deeper and deeper into the earth. Following it down where it's dark and cool, all the way down to the very, very center of the earth. And when it reaches that center point, feel the root sprout and anchor itself in. And as it does, notice that the root is pulling gently and becoming taut. And feel as that tautness moves all the way up the root, and then all the way up your spine, anchoring you securely to the earth. I'd like to ask the angels to please help me to be a clear channel of healing and information for Alan and his audience and myself, for our highest and best good. And please help us to receive this healing and information. Thank you. Blessed where you are, beings of light, blessed be where you are. In this moment in time, the information that has come through, that has directed you to be as you are in the space of your choosing, must be trusted. You cannot avow yourselves to be changeable in the moment, to be changeable as new information has come. You must listen to yourselves, to acknowledge your own potency as starlight beings. You must feel and observe what has led you to become as you are, what has brought you to where you are now. Attune to your own selves, to your heart space, attune to what draws you there, to why you have chosen it. What has drawn you into this space in particular, to the home that you call home, to the space of your choosing? What has drawn you there? Is it a spaciousness of your own aptitude for living? Do you feel within the space and circumstances you find yourself in that there is a tolerance for new light and living? Is there the opportunity, and can you provide yourself a doorway into new understanding? Or do you feel limitation, hardship, the brevity of this time and time frame is shortening? Times come. Time is lengthening beyond the now. It is extending toward yourself, coming at a greater and greater pace. The shifting has already begun. Thus, come into the knowingness of your own heart. Come into the fold of your own encounter. Become aware of what surrounds you now. Does it hold for you an umbrella of peace? Can you find surrender within it? Or must you hold yourself in combatant position? Must you brace yourself against living? This cannot be the way chosen forward from now. Be within your own heart and acknowledge what you have created. Be within the shade of your own experience and know your choice matters from now. Be within the space of your own learning and decide, yes, choose for yourself an experience of greater peace. Make within the space you own or have a haven of sorts. Create an abundance of illumination that comes from shades and colors of your own choosing. Find fragrances that draw you into an experience of memory that brings you hope and harmony. Find methods by which you can transform your surroundings. These are important going forward. You must create peace where you are. You must create a haven for yourselves. The time is coming, shortening. Even now, as it is spoken, the time is coming. And we would advise yourselves to hear your own soul in its surrender to what is evolving. Are you in a space of spaciousness where surrender is possible? Or are you in a space of rejection, a space of intolerance, a space where all bedevils you? Create the distance that you need, the separation that you will require, through which to envelop yourself in a peaceful time. We thank you.
Wow. Did you hear that?
I see visuals when they speak. I don't hear everything as much, but I saw they were really showing me. Well, tell me what you got first. That helps bringing me to remember.
I want to hear, but that we have to create this peaceful sense of inside ourselves. That's was the major message I got. We have to drop in, into that, find that place of peace.
They were showing me very specific visuals. They were showing me at one point a perfume that my grandmother would wear, and they were showing me this as an example of, okay, first they were showing me the process of choosing. Do you have the opportunity to, are you in a space that you feel peaceful or not? If you're not, they were showing me, do you have the opportunity to move or not? And to tune into, and they were trying to show for people to evaluate where they are right now. Are you in a space that currently feels supportive or not? And then they were showing me, what do you do if you can't move? And they were showing me and that was where the perfume came in. It was like, what can you do in your environment to create a space that feels, and the big thing was surrender. how do you get into a space of surrender if you feel like where you are, you're in combat? If you feel like you're in resistance to where you are, you can't get into a space of surrender. So how can you make the space that you're in, if you can't change it, if you can change it, great. If you can't, but they want people to pay attention to this. Do you live in a space where you feel safe to surrender?
Mm, that's
And that
good.
was it.
But the other thing about, which I thought was a real practical advice, is the perfume, the aroma. So give yourself the actual physical sense of smelling something that uplifts you.
Yes,
Would you say
yeah.
that practical suggestion there?
And then they were showing me simple things you could do were and I don't know why they were showing me light and color. And they were showing like, so pay attention to the color in your space. Like it was even almost like change a light bulb. It would be like, what can you do to really give you a sense that your space is different, that it has a vibe? And it was like use color, use light, use fragrance, do things where you create a space that is where you design it now that this is your space where you feel safe to surrender. That if you can't move, like if you ideally you want to be in a space that's great for you, but if it has to be a compromise, if you're like, look, my space isn't great and I can't change it, can you do something now that would create, pick a corner and make it your meditation corner, you know what I mean? And make a beautiful space for yourself where you feel safe to surrender.
And this is all in preparation for this big shift. I mean, like, well, because it's happening now. If you do that for yourself, you're shifting,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. And I think it probably has something to do with the fact that we're going to be going through some really difficult times. And how do you cope? Okay, what do you do if you feel like okay, if the stock market crashes, if the banks close, there's going to be a lot of people freaking out. Well, it might be really nice to have a place you can shut the world out and come back to your place where you feel safe, where you don't feel like you have to fight what's going on. So much of it is, are we in resistance to what's happening, or can you surrender to what's happening? So I think it's that, is that you might, if you ever notice you're getting into fear, you pick a space where you go like, this is where I go when I surrender to what is. And I might be afraid, I might worry what's going to happen to me. What if, you had all your money in a 401k and it's gone and you're like, what is going to happen to me? Okay, go to your safety space and get in there and just, okay, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I don't know how, but it's going to be okay. Get a space that's for you. And I think that's what they were. So I think it's that. And then I think it's also the flash of light. But I think, why would they be saying it now? I think it's because they have said, like, their advice about having some cash on hand was very recent. And they were like, do not wait, do not wait. Like, I think this is soon.
Wow. Well, that's good advice, well, so thank you for spending some time here let's do something in October, you said, as things sort of really start to accelerate.
It sounds great.
You feel like it's just going to pick up from here. Everything is just going to
Yeah.
kind of,
I don't know. I mean, it might not, it might be, we can play it by ear, but it's going to be sometime there will be something this fall, something going on. It could be into December. It could be November. It could be October. Like I said, they don't do time. Their time is not, they don't actually experience time at all. So them and time is like, they have given me a couple time predictions for people, but they used like lunar cycles. They would be like, it would be within the next lunar cycle. And that was not, but it was a personal thing where it was 100%. That was basically like a friend was saying, like, when is my property going to sell? And they said, it'll be in the next lunar cycle. And this is who it will be. And this is how and it all happened exactly like they said. But
yeah.
typically timing, no, they don't give me anything.
I keep feeling that your angels are a little more than angels. I mean, yeah, I mean, they're a little more substantial perhaps than angels, or some beings that whatever. But thank you, Anne, for spending time and sharing your passion, your message, because this is what you're here to do. So how can people find you? What's the best way to look up more of your work?
Thanks for asking. It's easy to find me if you're on YouTube. It's just my name. Ann Tucker is my YouTube channel, and there's lots of videos on there. I'm live every Friday with a new message from the angels, and it's Ann with an E. And then my website, same thing, anntucker.com. So, and I do have lots of different things going on. I've got a retreat coming up in October, which I'm super excited about. I would love to have people come and join me. There are some space spots left if people want to come
Where's
and
that
experience.
happening? Where's the
When?
retreat?
It is
Where?
the last, oh, in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
we're
it's the
going to
last
be
weekend of
last
October?
weekend in October, which is like what, the 26th, 27th, and 28th. And I absolutely love the retreats. It's super fun. I'm in channel a bunch of, like, it's pretty much, I call it eat, pray, love, eat, pray, love, eat, pray, love, because we go like we it's all like vegan, amazing food, but we eat, we channel, and then right, and then we have to rest, and then eat and channel, rest, eat, channel, rest. So it's like
That's
all day long.
funny. Eat, pray, love. That is funny. Well, I appreciate your work and, your conviction, your passion to help the planet. This
Thank
is the
you.
time. And
Thank you so much. And thank you
yep.
so much for your work. And I mean, that you have been one of the way showers from the beginning. I know it took so much courage back in the day. So yeah, amazing, amazing. And yeah, and now look at, like, here you are, the context and the history that you bring and the awareness that you bring is so appreciated.
Well, I didn't think of it as courage. I just was following my passion
Yeah.
to to see what the next levels of reality were all about. That's why I
Yeah.
called it new reality. So,
Yeah.
okay, we'll be in touch. I'll reach out or you reach out. And
Sounds great.
thank you everyone for watching New Reality. Subscribe, take out a super chat, send me an email, and hope to see everyone soon. Thanks, Anne. We'll be in touch.